Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for August 1st for the Village of Skokie. And I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. Let me explain to you that the Plan Commission is a recommending body to the Board of Trustees. Our findings tonight and our vote is not binding. And again, since it is a recommendation to the board, it'll go before the board for a final approval at one of their meetings. They meet on the first and third Mondays of every month. What I do for, I will call the petitioner up and he or she will present their case, after which I will ask the staff to read its report into the record, after which I'll ask the petitioner again for rebuttal. And after that, I will open the floor to anybody in the audience who has a question or an opinion on the case. First order of business is to approve the minutes for the last meeting.
So
Move. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Okay. First case tonight is case 2019-20P, a special use permit at 4330 Dempster Street, McDonald's USA LLC, on behalf of McDonald's Corporation, Verna D. Bazanzian Trust, and None Better Property Management, request to amend an existing special use permit for a limited service restaurant with 2 drive-through lanes in the B3 district to modify the existing site plan and landscaping plan. Relief from Chapter 118-52 to allow a ground sign within the required 15 feet site distance triangle, and relief from Chapter 118-21211, I1, yes, I1, to allow continuous curbing less than 6 feet from and parallel to any property line adjacent to a street frontage, and any other relief that may be discovered during the review of this case. Is the petitioner here tonight? So would you step to the microphone, please? It's a little one. There it is. Could you give us your name and your relationship to the petitioner?
Sure. My name is Ken Price. I'm a landscape architect from Watermark Engineering. I'm here tonight on behalf of McDonald's to present the project.
Okay. Counselor, is there a notice in order? Counselor, excuse me.
Can you just put him under oath for a moment and then I'll...
Your microphone.
Can you just put him under oath and I'll ask him one question?
Okay.
Thanks.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you?
I do.
Corporation Counsel has a question of you.
Can you just confirm that all the mailings were issued on July 12th, I believe it was? Yeah, July 12th of 19?
Correct.
Great. All right, notice is proper and correct.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Sir, make your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Do you have the next slide for the site plan?
It's on the table.
Just
right
move.
over to your-
Yeah, it's an analog system.
McDonald's obviously put forth a set of plans for you to review tonight, requesting approval for a couple of variances. As you will see in this lower diagram, which is an enlargement of what you see at the top right, the IDOT is taking a corner clip on this property to do an intersection improvement and to do lane configurations to Niles Center Road. That taking, as you can see, affects a little bit of infrastructure that is on the McDonald's property. Tonight we were requesting a variance to take the sign as it's shown below and move it to the McDonald's property with a 0 setback. The sign would be moved as is, no real changes other than it just has to be relocated. We just found out today that IDOT has requested that the sign be taken down within the month. So we're up against a little bit of a timeline crunch here, but
Giving you a lot of time.
right. Well, So that is probably first and foremost what is the issue at hand. Like I said, we're not modifying the sign, we're just going to relocate it. Along with that is a flagpole and a parking lot light that is on private property. We just have to move it in order for the parking lot changes. So IDOT had submitted to McDonald's a plan that involved this change to the parking lot, but it involved taking out 2 parking stalls to the property, which was highly important to McDonald's, and they asked us to revisit the site plan. So we have modified the plan that they had put together in initials, and what you'll see there along Niles Center Road is our attempt to try to get one of those stalls back. So no way about it that we're going to lose 1 stall in the parking lot, but we're trying to reconfigure this to get one of those stalls back. So that modification is the primary reason why we're here tonight. The existing conditions are that the back of curb for our parking lot is basically right there on the property line. We're maintaining that. We're just modifying the curbs to get that stall back. With these changes, we would be doing landscape to those 2 islands that are affected by the construction, to repair those areas and to remove the infrastructure and privately owned items that are going to be on the IDOT property as a part of the taking. With
Any
that, I
questions?
take questions.
Just one. There's a planting area now around the flagpole and sign post pylon area. As those are relocated, will that planting area still, will there be a new planting area then around the newly located flagpole and sign?
Yes, they will.
So the only change, we'll still have a flagpole, still have a sign, it'll still be on the corner will be cut.
Correct.
There'll still be landscaping.
Yes.
The only change effectively will be McDonald's will lose 1 parking space.
That is the loss to the project that's being done. Yes.
But no change of the drive-through flow or of the traffic flow in the parking lot.
No, they're correct. The curbing will not affect the drive-through circulation.
Okay.
Will your landscaping be at the present level, or are you going to build it up?
It will be at the same level as the curb in the parking lot, and then it will slope towards the intersection as it does today. But there is an elevation change. The IDOT plans do show a curb as a part of the sidewalk process to help mitigate the grade change.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything else to offer?
I would, staff has a report, and on page 4 of the report, they had made some recommendations that kind of go with this approval. If you look at page 4, item 2A, staff is requesting bollards to be installed in the drive-through as a part of this approval, and McDonald's does not want to see that happen. Drive-throughs are very complicated. It's a highly precise, mechanism, and truck circulation is really important to getting their deliveries on and off site. So while we understand the staff's concern about the way cars come into the site from Niles, you'll see from time to time somebody will come in from the west or from the east and immediately turn south and try to dive into the drive-through. That is not uncommon.
I've seen that happen many
Yeah,
times.
that is not uncommon to many sites. But putting vertical barriers just means it will just now be something that a car will hit. They have very precise design standards for their drive-throughs. It is already currently signed with a do not enter sign, but it's kind of something that has to do with poor driving habits. Like McDonald's is really, it's really important that the drive-through be configured the way they are. So we would request that be not part of the approvals.
Okay, we'll discuss that with staff when they come up for the report.
Okay,
Anything else?
that's it.
Good, thank you. Pete, are you going to give the report?
Get up and do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Staff asks that the report be accepted into record as written.
Granted.
Thank you. This is just one of numerous properties at the intersection of Niles Center Road, Dempster Street, and Skokie Boulevard, which IDOT is taking land from in order to improve the intersection. This has been on the books for 20, 30 years now, and finally it's coming to the point where it's going to happen. So, so far we've taken care of the, it says vacant, but
The Overvice property, right?
yeah, the Overweiss property went through the modified review. The tire center up here, that Firestone, that's gone, they're a permitted use, so staff took care of that. There will be a taking over here. It's currently being appraised, and then McDonald's, and then there's some here on the vacant property, and then there's some up north also. So all the property owners in the area have been affected by it. And in this case, we would have recommended it going through the modified review also, but there were actually two requests here. One was to move the sign into a site triangle, which was over here where the drive is, where you're coming into the site. That was the original location that they wanted to be. And staff was opposed to that. And since they filed it, they've dropped that request, and it's going to stay in the triangle at the corner, which is obviously the best place for a ground sign like that where everybody could see it. So staff is very supportive of that. To the petitioner's question about the bollards, the trustees brought it up at a meeting. I'm not quite sure if it was about McDonald's. I think it was at the McDonald's on Toohey. That there are yelling matches and people getting into arguments. And so we've tried to control this the best we can. One of the problems also is that when people come in on Niles Center Road and they go west, they're going against traffic because it's one way going out to that location. So it really causes a problem as people try and get in there, they can't get in there, then they block the traffic for others trying to get out of the site. So it could be, those rubber pylons or something like that, but something needs to be placed there as a barrier. I was just down at the one on Toohey, and I noticed that all of them have been knocked down and taken out. So it's a difficult situation.
It is difficult, and I frequent that McDonald's in the morning, and I do see people coming in against the flow of traffic just to get into the drive-through lane quickly.
Right.
They'll come in if they see it open, then they'll just dart around and come through. It's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go all the way around.
I don't know if this shows
Hey,
up
Peter?
properly, but there are also some modifications on the west drive,
Yeah.
or the east drive, I should say. And so these will help a little bit. This is being channelized a little better up here, and that'll help force people going around the store as they should go around, instead of trying to make that turn. But again, they're going against traffic, and it's causing a problem.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter,
Yes.
what's your opinion on the comment that these will tend to create more of a hazard than prevent something from happening?
Well, our
We
traffic
just
engi-
indicated that a lot of things were knocked down at the other McDonald's. I mean, once someone commits and all of a sudden the bollards are there, then they're even more of a bind than they thought they'd be in.
Well, our traffic engineer is supportive of putting them in. Our planners are, so I'm giving you what their position is on it. It's a maintenance thing also, so if they get knocked down, you got to put them back up. I think most people would look at it and realize that that's not the way to go. You will get those one or two people who are going to do it no matter what. But I mean, this isn't very intuitive that you have to drive around the whole building unless you've been there several times and know that. I mean, if you're new to the site you'd see the drive-through and you'd try and shoot down and go in. But others would need to really be channeled around and make it as difficult as possible.
Peter, could you point out the location of the suggested bollards and whether they are being required to be of the hard bollard type, or whether the village is being flexible and allowing McDonald's to have the flexible bollards?
It's plastic versus concrete line.
That's right.
We are always flexible.
And we like McDonald's.
It would be up here, coming down.
Oh, I see. So the cars could come out, of course, as they're making that turn. They would either go to the drive-thru or go out, but it would somehow tell drivers inbound that they should not turn here.
That's right. I mean, already you have an island out here, so trucks coming through here are being pushed around, so the bollards aren't really gonna make any difference. Oh, my opinion.
And the bollards that are being suggested are the soft type, not the hard type.
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything. It could be a guardrail. I know McDonald's wanted a painted line previously. It's not working, so maybe we could try something else.
How many ballards, just out of curiosity, and what are their spacing?
Well, I think we could work that out as part of the permit process. I couldn't tell you right now.
And without a pretty good string, I still think people are gonna take the path of least resistance, those that cannot.
It'll be-
foresight
but-
enough
but-
to
Sure.
see I can go around.
All right.
I think what'll happen is somebody will try it and realize they have to do like a 3-point turn to get to it.
And they'll do a 3-point turn.
Yeah, but I think after that, they won't do it again, but
I don't know if you all noticed, at all the CTA crossings, they put those up. And that was to keep people from going around the gates and from, doing crazy
yeah, I've
things.
seen them, but they take them down in the wintertime too.
They take them down in the winter, but also every once in a while, one gets knocked down or two get knocked down, and they, have the maintenance and they put it back up, and
Yeah.
they're very effective. It really channelizes you as you go through, and I think that might have the same effect here.
Well,
And we could try it. If it
I'd
doesn't
like to
work,
try it.
then we can. Okay.
Those are the plastic type.
Yes,
okay.
they break off at the bottom.
Any,
Will that
Good.
have the plastic bases? Will we try that first, or are they gonna be in ground?
We could try it out. We could try the portable ones, or we could try, the ones that CTA have are embedded in the asphalt, but the tops come off and they can reset them.
The reason why it's a challenge in the drive-through is because of snow removal, obviously. The
Right.
removables, at least you can move them to the side plow. So some consideration, I would think, to maintenance.
any other questions, comments? Okay. Peter, thank you. Sir, if you'll come back up and, oh, I'm
So-
sorry.
So they need relief, just,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
that's the reason they're here. So they
Right.
dropped the request for the sign at this location. Oops, a little smaller here. At this location, and they're
Mhm.
putting the sign back over here.
Okay.
And the second thing is that when the state takes the corner like that, and we want to save those parking spaces, but we don't have the setback we need for the curbing. So instead of 6 feet, they're only going to have 2 feet. And it may be that their bumpers even overhang a little bit, but there's plenty of width there for it to work.
Actually, this didn't need Appearance Commission approval, did it?
It did go to the Appearance
It
Commission,
did?
yes.
Okay,
And it was approved.
okay. All right, thank you, Peter. Sure. So I think for the sake of safety and for others, I think we may want to try the bollards.
Well, all good points, by the way, all good points. But I know McDonald's position on this, we've talked about it, and our firm designs 15, 20 McDonald's a year. We've been doing it for 20 years. This is, I don't know of a project that we've done that involves putting bollards, plastic or concrete, in a drive-through. Again, they have global standards on their drive-through designs. We have very strict, design standards to follow when we do them. There is the reoccurring cost. They get hit, they break, you replace them. you know, they damage cars, and there's a discussion about who's responsible. The plethora of things that kind of come along with it are part of one of the reasons why they don't like them. And I would reiterate that happens. And there's a McDonald's that one of the franchisees owns that we talked to a couple of years ago. They have a retaining wall on their lot. About 3 or 4 times a year, a car just drives right over the retaining wall. And so it's driving habits, and the drive-through is signed, it is striped. We plan on, as part of the plans, we do plan on restriping the parking lot so the paint will be much more vibrant. But as again, we were saying, like, while I know that you guys are interested in the cars coming through the site, but if you, may I walk away from the microphone to
Sure, go ahead.
illustrate something here? Is that southbound delivery trucks that come along Niles Center, they dive in across this, and, you know, they're off-hour delivery, but this is designed strategically. As you can see, the trailing wheel of a semi, they come in off of this throat. This is where deliveries occur, right here. That semi has to be on this side of the building. And so that's how they get into the freezer cooler. So this is an operations thing, and we start putting obstacles, you know, it's affecting the private party that delivers the trucks to at McDonald's and that type of thing. So it's,
I've been there when they've had the delivery truck coming from the other side.
Yeah.
And facing east.
right. We mock up delivery trucks, you know, for McDonald's on our projects and stuff. But I was just trying to illustrate that there is some real reasons why every McDonald's site looks like it is, and some more conventional than others, but it's very well thought out, and McDonald's would not be interested in doing the bollards plastic, or otherwise, again, we're going to restripe it. We could even add another sign, or we could even do a stripe across. McDonald's would even be okay if we do a stop bar right across this lane, you know, a 2-foot wide stop bar that you see. And so there's already an existing sign right here that says do not enter, but we could, so pavement striping, something that doesn't damage anybody's car, doesn't affect anybody's circulation through the site, would be what we would offer as a kind of a meet in the middle situation.
The reason I asked the question earlier about reconfiguring the drive-through in the parking lot,
Right.
and you answered there was to be no reconfiguration of either the parking lot or the drive-through lane, so that this addition of bollards is something the staff is saying to you to do to a present existing site, not because of the movement of the flagpole or the parking space lost because of IDOT.
Correct. The parking lot is only being modified right here and in this area to address the right-of-way taking and to get that one stall back. But really from the island tip here to here, that's what's being affected. Like from there, this direction isn't being altered at all.
So the parking lot reconfiguration does not then drive the bollard issue. There is no parking lot reconfiguration as far as you're concerned.
I would say no, because we're just taking some asphalt and pushing it a little to the north and a little to the south to get the one stall back. So reconfiguring, you know, it's still angled stalls. There's 7 stalls there today. We're just, again, we're right here at this corner. We're going to go into this island with a little asphalt, and then this island here has to be shifted, and this stall right here is going to kind of become its place.
So if I could ask Peter one question while the petitioner is still up, because it seems to be this one issue. So Peter, are we right to interpret then the petitioner as saying that there is to be no change of the overall dimension layout of the parking lot, so that the bollard introduction is something that the staff and the village would be overlaying on an existing business? It would be as though we were going to McDonald's, there were no flagpole or sign movement, and we would say to them, we don't like the way your traffic is behaving and we want to manage it differently.
Yes, in the sense that, however, that the special use permit is for the operation of the drive-through. And as we've observed it, it doesn't work that well. I mean, first off, the question came in, how do you create a dual drive-through? How do people, make that decision, who goes first and whatever? But this is one that causes some real problems. It's not just the drive-through operation, but getting into the drive-through, which messes up the parking and other operations of the site. So this is a little different. We would probably have gone back to them anyhow at some point, but this was the time that we had to bring it forward.
Yeah, since they're under special use and since they're coming back for this modification to the corner, we have a chance now to, right some wrongs, as they say. So to make a correction. So I think that's what we're doing. That's what staff is thinking about doing. Okay? Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, is there anybody in the audience who has a question or comment on this case? Please come up. Okay, none? Okay, I am open for a motion.
Can I make a suggestion here?
Yes.
We are at an impasse, as you said. If you take a vote on it, the way staff recommended, we will work with the petitioner until it's presented to the village board to see if there's some alternative to that. And we'd be glad to do that. And,
Well-
if there's a way that a bar across that would work or some other method of doing it, then we certainly, but again, if you're having semi-trucks coming, that's a high bar to go under, and, there's a lot of cost in that also.
But that staff comment does move me in the right direction. So therefore, I do move approval of the plan as presented by the petitioner and with the conditions imposed by the staff, with the understanding, as Peter said, that the staff will work with the petitioner to try to accommodate all the movement at that one spot, be it with signage, bollards, or a bar.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Berman. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Lexpati. Thank you. So I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Quain?
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman?
Aye.
Commissioner Villegas?
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin?
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati?
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman? Commissioner Matei?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Okay. So this case still has to go before the Board of Trustees. I don't have a date currently, and you will be notified when that meeting has occurred. And if you would work with staff between now and then on this ballot issue.
Sure.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Bear in mind, as far as scheduling is concerned, it said IDOT wants to sign down in a month.
We understand that, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next case tonight is case 2019-21P, parking determination, the DIL 7 Howard Street Delivery Station at 3639 Howard Street. Request a parking determination for a truck and freight transportation services in a M3 industry district. Okay, who's asking the request? Please, come on up. Good evening, sir. Give your name, please.
Good evening, Chairperson, fellow Commissioners. My name is Greg Skovich. I represent Skokie Commerce Center, Inc. We are the facility owner located at the address referenced in the petition.
Okay. So, can I have your name again, please?
Greg Skovich.
Okay, sir, if you would raise your right hand. Are you an attorney?
I am not an attorney.
Okay, then raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth to help you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there notice and order, Counselor?
There's no notice required for
Okay.
a parking determination.
Thank you. Okay, if you kind of just gloss over the,
Well, thank everyone for their time. Especially thank you to the village staff who helped us get to this position in as expeditious fashion as possible. Hillwood broke ground on this property in late 2017, and we finished about a year ago today. Since that time, we've been fortunate to enter into lease with a user who intends to take the entire building and use it to supplement the United States Postal Service, UPS, and Federal Express for home delivery of internet retail purchases. As such, the parking for this unique facility was difficult to apply an equation to, so hence the reason staff recommended us to perform a parking determination, and that's what we're here to discuss this evening. The parking determination, as prepared by our traffic and parking consultants, took the most conservative approach possible based on a number of variables. The facility is very fluid in its operation. It responds based on package delivery and package purchases. It has a peak season that coincidentally coincides with the holiday season at the end of the year. And we took the peak season and the highest demand for employee count and delivery personnel and used that in our preparation of the parking determination. Keep in mind that the highest demand is 1 month out of the year, and for the balance of the year, we're operating at about 60% of that volume. Additionally, to take another step further relative to a conservative approach and determination, we assumed there'd be no public transportation used by the employees in the facility. Skokie has a very well-established and relies very heavily on public transportation. There's a bus stop on Howard Street on property. I expect that as the operation is open for business, they're going to discover that there are more people using public transportation than was originally assumed. Additionally, given the fluid nature of everything within the walls and the technology enhancements that the user is always introducing to these facilities so that the packages can be delivered sooner, that demand for users within the facility could fluctuate one way or the other. But right now we feel that the determination that you have in front of you is the most conservative for day one full facility operation. Again, for the peak season. So
This is strictly delivery, there's no customer pickup?
no, sir. No customers will be allowed access to the site. It will be for home delivery only. No, sir.
Does it interact at all with the FedEx site immediately to the west of it?
There is no relation between the two facilities. No, sir.
Is there no relation in terms of traffic flow, but is there a relationship in that those trucks are going to be moving back and forth, or are some of those trucks that are coming out of that former 7-Up facility going to be then moving into this facility at all?
No, unfortunately not. That's a totally separate operation. This user will be relying 100% on their own resources. They will have delivery trucks coming in with packages, and those delivery trucks will then be sorted and distributed to individual delivery vans.
So the adjacency is just coincidental?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions of the petitioner?
One
Yes, sir.
request of the petitioner, and again, appreciate the time in the audience tonight and, of course, staff's help and guidance. Because of the fluid nature and because of the ever-changing season and demand on packages, is it, and this is a point of clarification, as the operation evolves and it is determined that, hey, the parking determination may have been excessive, is that something that
You can revisit it.
we revisit with the commission, or is that
You
something
should talk to staff.
we can work with staff
Yes.
on those? Perfect.
Okay.
I think we need to clarify that a little bit.
Oh, I thought we could do with staff.
Well, if you approved it as a phased project, and I know you have phase 1 and phase 2, then we could say at phase 1 you're at so many spaces, and at phase 2, with a maximum, phase 2 is 1,100 spaces. So, I mean, if that's what you're asking for, then the commission could vote on it now and say, yes, we agree with that. But if it's a matter of them making a decision, and it's clear in here that says once the decision's made, it's 1,100 spaces, So then staff could not make a change to that.
Gotcha.
So, but we would bring you back through the same process and look at it and make the modifications.
Unlike other cases that we look at, parking determination becomes we are the final hearing body for that, so we will make, our vote will be final on parking determination.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question.
Yes.
2 phases, but really, unless I'm missing something, there's 3 phases, is there not? Or, right, to get to a total of potentially 1,100. But phase 2 appears to have 210 and then 551 potentially additional. Phase 1 is what, 176? Can you maybe elaborate on the 3 phases, or maybe
So,
it is only 2?
There are only 2 phases, and the phases are tied to the available on-site parking. What you were looking at in the screen is phase 1. And as you can see, on the west half of the building, or the west quarter of the site, 20% of the site, forgive me, we have open water detention. And that is real estate that phase 2 is taking into consideration, and we are investigating with staff as well as with the Metropolitan Water District the potential of burying that detention while still preserving the storage quality and the storage necessary for the stormwater, and creating additional parking on site. So phase 1 would be as the site more or less exists today, and then phase 2, which could come online later this year or first to middle of next year, would take advantage of the potential additional real estate that could be created by burying the detention.
And does that additional real estate get you to 1,100 spaces?
I wish.
Okay.
No, unfortunately not. That adds another 210 parking spaces.
Okay, so then where's the remainder come from? Is
So-
that the off-site?
So the user is currently sourcing off-site options to accommodate the balance of the necessary parking stalls.
So currently there are no off-site arrangements?
No committed off-site arrangements. They are in negotiations to secure those off-site parking stalls.
Thank
So, Peter, we're looking at phase 1,
No, we're looking at all phases
all
right now.
phases, okay.
So, you want to hear a staff report?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I was gonna say, at this point, what, would you, if you don't have anything else to offer, if you would sit down, we'll listen to the staff's report, and come back up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we ask that the staff report be entered into record as written.
Okay.
This is a parking determination, and as you have mentioned, it's a final hearing on this. The site plan is really meaningless in the sense that we talked about an operation, we talked about number of vehicles, a number of trucks and cars that would be here, but it could be anywhere in the village, basically. So we're looking at how it operates. This is not a facility where everybody shows up at one time. They show up in platoons, the trucks show up in platoons, they have different workers who load the trucks and others who drive the trucks, and some of the drivers park on site and some of the drivers park off site. So they have another, I believe, 3-4 months until this facility is going to be operational. And in that time period, we're expecting the owners of the property and the operators to come up with some locations to park the vehicles. There might be some temporary lots which will allow, and while they prepare permanent lots because of the different permits that are needed from MWRD and from IDOT. So all those different factors come into it. But what the traffic analysis is saying that this facility will need 1,100 spaces somewhere. And they could be inside the building, some of them, some can be outside. And so we understand that it's not going to be a simple, clean thing like we always see. It's going to be a very fluid operation, and we're going to have to know where those lots are and everything. It's up to the petitioner to transport them to wherever those lots are to the facility. So we've looked at it. 1,100 spaces is more than adequate. And as the petitioner indicated, we would even go for a modal split, you know, to have some kind of reduction. They're on Howard Street. Facilities they're looking at for remote parking are on Oakton Street, where there's good transportation. So we could see that there is a possibility to lower it in the future. But as a as they're coming to the market, I'm sure the petitioner really wants to be sure that when they need those workers there, they can be there. So we support their parking analysis of 1,100 cars. That's the best I can tell you.
Okay.
And yes, you know, the site, there's 536 to 551 on site, you know, give or take. When we get in, finally review all the plans and see everything, you know, we might be able to squeeze a few more in. 638 approximately are off-site, and we have other uses that do the same type of thing. Sherman Dodge, for instance, you'll see their vans coming back and forth all the time with workers and shuffling vehicles and things like that. So it's not uncommon, but it's not very, very common in Skokie.
Okay. Any questions of staff?
Have there been conversations with adjacent properties about the possibility of either acquisition or rental? Not so much the transport to Oakton, but the bus barn to the east or the urban farm to the west?
I'm sure every property owner in the area has had a discussion.
Oh, but the village has not been a part of that.
No, that's not our position.
So if we're approving this tonight, we're approving that this number of spaces is required, and therefore the site can't be used unless those spaces are somehow provided for by the petitioner,
That's correct.
whether they are on-site or off-site.
That's
However they do it.
Yes. They could
Okay.
build a parking garage, they could do whatever they want, but we need to see those parking spaces.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? No? Mr. Sklovich, is that correct? So, you've heard the staff's comment, and, you know, I guess we're looking at 1,100 spaces,
Yes, sir.
okay?
And the user is, again, having conversations with many of the property owners within the
Okay.
village to source the balance of stalls that are not are immediately available on site.
Okay, very good.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So does the, oh, I can't reach it.
I'll get it. Sorry. Oops.
So does the owner believe that he or she will be able to procure those 1,100 spaces before the 3 to 4 months when you're ready to open?
We're very optimistic, yes. If not, we may see you again very soon.
Okay.
Okay, that's why I'm just wondering if we want to do phase one, and if you would want to do phase one and phase two, or if you want to go for the 1,100. Just,
Ideally, I would very much like to have that flexibility to where we could have a scaled down operation, but to staff's to staff's credit, they have not had the opportunity to look at what that would look like. So we would have to go back and work with staff and the user and determine what off-site stalls are attainable to the extent we are short, and what reduced operation could they live with based on the parking stalls available at the time. So I don't know if that would require to be heard by the planning commission, or if that could be staff.
Yeah, maybe we should look at the parking determination a little differently. I know you're very talented traffic engineers out here that might be able to answer the question, but I believe it's 1 space per vehicle. And so in phase one or whatever phase you're in, as long as you provide 1 space per vehicle, we'll be okay. But we'd have to prove at any point what that is.
Sure.
to make, it still comes out to 1,100.
But,
at the
but
end.
from an operational standpoint, if the facility were to come online and not need to operate at full capacity, perhaps it's determined that, hey, we have redundant operations in the area and we only need to operate at 50%, and thereby we need 550 parking stalls. The process for making that request and limiting occupancy to 50%, again, speaking very generally, apologies for the casual discussion, but would that be a conversation that would be worked out with staff, or would it be another parking determination with the Plan Commission?
Well, the ratio is 1 to 1, so if the Plan Commission accepts that, no matter where you're at, you always have to be 1 per 1. The problem comes in, how fast can you provide those parking spaces? So you come up to the holiday season and you need 500 more spaces and you don't have them, well, I don't know what we're going to do. That's...
Ideally, Pete, you're right. It's a non-issue, and we can secure all of the off-site stalls we need prior to occupancy. But to the extent negotiations with adjacent property owners stall, or the operation determines that we can operate at 50% capacity, there's, again, it's very fluid and a lot of variables. The parking determination was a very conservative presentation of the maximum need for parking stalls, again, for 1 month out of the year. But 1 for 1, to the extent we could quantify that relative to the operation, whether it's 100%, 50%, 75%, I think the approval of 1 for 1 would be very favorable.
So it'll be 1,100 spaces then?
Yeah, but at some point during phase 1, it may be 500 spaces, or it may be 700 at certain times of the year, or it may be 1,000 at another time of the year. But those, if it's going to be operated during that peak period, then there must be 1,100 spaces available.
Then it might as well be 1,100 spaces.
That's right. But he's indicating that it's going to take a while to gear up this facility to 1,100.
Exactly.
And it'd be hard for us to monitor that.
Right, it is.
Okay.
Peter, can we give them a time limit that like they can acquire 1,100 parking spot by the end of this year or beginning of this year or like that?
They would really have to give us an occupancy schedule, and then we could. It's going to be 75% by this year or 100%. We would need to know what that phasing is.
Yeah.
And they would have to stick to it.
So Peter, do you want to modify the staff recommendation such that we are approving tonight parking consistent with whatever their graduated increase of staffing is?
So kind of a ramp up?
Exactly. They're ramping up their production and they're ramping up their parking simultaneously, and the staff says that is correct, and the staff monitors that, and we then approve that ongoing
It
ramp.
still might be hard to monitor.
Yes, and that's my concern. I mean, it's logical, and it would be something we could do if there were certain phases, yes, but I'm not sure that we can monitor that. And
Well, we still have an issue. We still have an issue of what the staff has recommended, and plus the operation of the facility is at its maximum for about a month out of the year. So we may as well just follow the
Go for the
staff.
max.
Go for the max, yeah.
Okay. And if they have any problems, can they come back to us?
yes, definitely.
Okay. So we're going to probably go with the 1,100 spaces. If you perceive a problem, then you'll have to come back.
Okay.
Okay?
I appreciate the audience.
Okay. So, we need a motion
Motion to approve as a staff
Motion to
report.
approve, staff's recommendation.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Commissioner Mitchell, thank you. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Quinn,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Villegas,
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei. Now vote aye. So again, if you notice the problems as you're starting to ramp up, feel free to call staff. Call them. Thank you. Good luck to you. Next case tonight is case 2019-22P, zoning chapter amendment for cannabis dispensing, and this is the non-medical.
Yes.
Okay, and I know we have a related case, but I'd like to go over each case separately.
Okay. We're going to start with case 2019-22P, which is the zoning chapter amendment to allow the sale of cannabis. It's called recreational cannabis, I guess. But we are withdrawing the second case because the way the state regulations are written.
It's for the medical.
Yes, they can be combined in the same dispensary, so there is no need for that separate case. So the village manager asked us to study this and to consider adding cannabis dispensing organizations to the zoning chapter. And I'm asking also that this be accepted into record, and I'll try and summarize this as best as possible. The state passed the State Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act on June 4th, 2019, which allows the sale to adults over 21 years of age to legally possess 30 grams of marijuana flower and 5 grams of marijuana concentrate. But that ruling or that legislation also allowed the establishment of cannabis sales locations and the cultivation centers also, so the dispensing and cultivation. What we're looking at today is actually the cannabis dispensing centers, and the state law was very specific that said that local governments have the right to regulate the time, place, manner, and number of cannabis business establishment operations, including minimum distance limitations between the cannabis businesses. So from a local standpoint, we have the right to control where they are and look at the land use issues. Questionable whether or not we can actually ban them. So it says that local governments may not be unreasonable in restricting these uses. Now, we do currently have on our books the right to sell medical marijuana and to cultivate it, and that's in the M districts. We would like to eliminate those and combine them into these broader variety. We've done a survey of other communities in the area, and we found that none of them are really that far along. I know Northbrook is looking at it. There's been a recent article in Cranes, Naperville, Libertyville, and Bloomingdale have voted down the facilities, but it's questionable whether these communities really have the authority to do so under the Act. So I'm sure as this progresses, and in January 1st is when these facilities are going to be licensed by the state, and I know they're going through the licensing process now, and there'll be 75 of these facilities in the state, so they're going to be distributed over certain areas of the state, and certain areas get a certain number of facilities. The existing medical ones are ones that can be converted first, and they also, those people who operate those have the first right at getting these licenses because they have a track record. So
is there a finite number of licenses, is that what you said?
Yeah, 75 new ones. There were, 55 medical ones that are in existence. So we're looking at now modifying our code to incorporate this, and we are looking at a couple of things. First off, we came up with a definition. The definition is the same as the state's because we're operating under their authority, and we're combining the medical and the recreational use together, or the adult use, as they might call it. Then we've come up with a list of use regulations that are in this staff recommendation, and a parking requirement, which is 1 space per 300 square feet, and also amending the chart to allow the use chart, which is Appendix A, to allow them in the B2 and B3 districts as permitted uses. So we're recommending, the state law does not indicate any spacing. There is a spacing, there's a requirement that you cannot advertise the use within 1,000 feet of schools and parks and areas where children are present. So we accepted that as the spacing requirement for all of these uses. So we're saying you can't be within 1,000 feet of that.
Well, why can't we make them a special use so that we can monitor them a lot easier?
Well, I'll get to that also.
Okay.
And the other second part of that is that you cannot have, and this is state law, you cannot have 2 of them within 1,500 feet of each other. So it really spreads them out. Now, you were handed out this map, and we modified it a little bit to hopefully make it more readable. And
Very artistic. The bubble map was very colorful.
Do we have, is anybody interested in seeing the report or this report? Or do we have copies of the map? Do you have copies? Okay.
yeah, the map, I can give you some copies. So all of the locations shown in blue are areas that we would like to restrict the sale of marijuana near them. So you have the high schools, you have parks, and some of them are questionable as park, you know, the Evanston Golf Course, but on the other hand, they have kids' activities there. The colleges, Oakton College is one of them, the Canal Bank, you have schools throughout the area, and parks. So that creates a bubble map of areas where it cannot be located. Staff is also only recommending that they be allowed in B2 and B3 districts. Those are our primary business districts along strict commercial areas. We're not recommending that it be in the Old Orchard Shopping Center, that's the regional shopping center districts. We're not living in the medical district because it just really doesn't fit. And then any residential area, which is all yellow, would be restricted also. So what it comes down to is there are only a few very small areas where medical and non-medical marijuana then could be sold. So for instance, here down on the southeast corner of the village, this is where Walmart would be. And then on the other side would be on the far corner of the village on Toohey. And then you go up then here there's on Toohey by the expressway. And then going north, you'd have on Main Street, this is where 7-Eleven is now, and the Masonic Temple. And Dempster Street, this is Oakton Street, just a small piece here. And you can see they're all very small. They're like 1,000-foot window or 250-foot window here on Dempster Street. These are very small. And then up here, this is where the Panera Bread is, at the little shopping center up there. And then further up, this is where the Ethan Allen is, and some other uses up there. So it's very limited based on that 1,000-foot spacing. And you could not have anywhere in the village where there would be 2 next to each other.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yes, question. Commissioner Mitchell?
How is this impacted by the Harrison Tax Act of 1925 or any of those other regulatory acts? In other words, my way of thinking is that cannabis is still illegal in terms of the federal government. How do we, I know the state has passed it, but it's still illegal as far as the federal government is concerned. Has some study been made to see whether we're rowing upstream or swimming in shark-infested water.
Well, so far in the states that do allow it, there
Mhm.
doesn't seem to be any federal issue. They are not enforcing anything there. I think the real problem comes in how the banking system works with it, which is regulated, so a federal bank probably would not take money from a cannabis facility. So they probably have other banking methods that they use, because in the beginning it was an all-cash business. It's no longer that. Then, to Chairman Luke's question, you asked why not special use? Looking at it, staff kept looking at it, trying to think, well, this is something we should really regulate, and we should make it a special use. But the fact is, there's really nothing to regulate. I mean, what we have, when you go through the requirements, it has to be in a standalone business. It has to meet the parking requirements. There has to be lighting. There has to be separation from neighboring properties.
I'm just more concerned about hours of operation.
Hours of operation are 10 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, so it's very restricted.
That's state law, you're saying?
No, that's our law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we looked at it. There was a meeting with staff, corporation counsel, village manager, health department. All the departments looked at it, and this is the list of things that we came up with. And so we're looking at saying, well, you can buy cigarettes, you can buy marijuana, and it's in an enclosed area. The state law is about 500 pages of regulations on how you have to lock it up, how you have to account for it, how you keep records. There's very little that the village can do to add to that. Now, we're just looking at the land use aspects of it, because this would be a permitted use. And so we covered all the things that we would usually cover on a retail use. And so we're looking at it basically as a retail use. The legal department is writing up the second half of this, which is the ordinance which will be involved in taxing and regulation of the actual operation of it. So it'll be more detailed to operations, where we're looking at basically a box building with parking around it, and it has to be maintained just like any other building.
When you said it has to be standalone, does that mean can it be a standalone storefront within a string of stores? Like you mentioned the Panera Bread Center, the Cemetery Mall Center at that corner, which is a string of stores in 2 phases. Can it be part of any of those strings?
No, it has to be.
So it could not effectively be at that center, because that center is a planned unit development of Panera, furniture store, and then a string of stores all connected. They couldn't locate another store. If they can't be part of that string and they can't be on that parking lot pad, then they can't be there at all.
Well, it's one of those things you never say never, because all of the sites that I've shown you are developed already. So, they may tear down the building. For instance, just as an example, on Tule, going here into the expressway, there's 3 gas stations. So maybe one of the gas stations sells and they convert it to a sales facility. So that's a possibility. It's like any other retail use. But the smoking ordinance, for instance, requires that every building where smoking is allowed be separate from any other building. So the Hookah Lounge on Dempster Street is an individual building, and the one downtown may have predated that, but there's no more licenses. And also the ordinance that the village attorney will be presenting to the board will limit the number of licenses. So it's not like you can just get any number of them. There's a certain number. And once the use comes in, they have to present all their plans to us just like any other use. They have to go through the certificate of occupancy request program, and they're inspected by all the departments for, fire, health, everything that would be involved, just like any other use.
Okay.
Well,
Commissioner Quinn?
So I see, looking at, I think there's about 10 locations or areas that have been carved out there. So to clarify, there could be potentially 10 locations as long as there's a standalone opportunity, either now or in the future.
and the village determines how many licenses, so.
So, okay, so it's not really, it's up to 10 location areas that could change based on the number of licenses. Could be less than that.
That's right.
Any other questions?
I have a couple other questions.
Yes.
You had said earlier that we had already approved medical dispensary in an M district
Yes.
previously, but we are taking that away now?
Yes, I mean, that was about, well, it's in the report, but I don't have it in front of me. But at that time, nobody had them, and we were concerned. I mean, we saw reports from other states that there might be, a run on these, there might be dangerous situations. None of that's happened. We've been approached by companies that sell marijuana. They say they've never had problems. You can check their records. So it's very regulated. It's very, it's like buying cigarettes, basically.
I'm just wondering why we are then why did we change from M's to B's and why we then took away the M's?
Because the M's really weren't the place for them. I think it's a commercial product, and that's how we're looking at it. And we know that they don't need to be hidden away somewhere. There's not something, I don't know. It's different to us. I mean, it's foreign, it's new, but it's just not something that needs that kind of protection. I don't think that we thought in the past.
All right, two other questions. We don't care about adjacency to residential areas. We're saying it can't be in a residential area, but if it's adjacent to a residential area, that's permissible?
Right. I mean, I don't know.
The 1,000-foot restriction is from those buffering from those other places like schools and parks,
That's
but
right.
residential adjacency doesn't matter.
No, I don't know where we would reasonably allow them if we had that restriction.
Okay, and then last question, is there any operational discussion of use on site versus sale only? It was something we commissioners were discussing briefly with each
Right.
other.
The state legislation clearly states that they can consume on site.
They can
They
consume.
can, but ours does not state that. And also, the other part of ours is that we do have a smoking ordinance that prohibits, I read it over, it's very interesting, it says weeds, any kind of thing that could be smoked is being prohibited. So it would not be a smoking lounge. These facilities may have product that can be tested, I don't know. But our recommendation is not including lounges at this time. So we had looked at it and said, well, we could put a lounge in, but then, again, that's a questionable thing. How would you regulate that? And if somebody consumes and leaves the site, which is illegal to be under the influence of cannabis, so how would you enforce that? So I think at
Peter,
this point, we're not looking at it.
Cigar King, that's a lounge, right?
It is,
Okay.
and that's a grandfathered lounge.
Oh, that's what it is, grandfathered in.
And same with the hookah lounge on Dempster Street.
Okay. Commissioner Villages?
There's not even, so like edibles are different than like a smoking lounge. So would that have to be a different sort of operational thing? And
I would
so
think
like
so,
the
but I
smoke,
think
the
Corporation
smoking ordinance
Council
is
has-
different than like an
Yeah.
edible ordinance.
I mean, if you, I think maybe we should go through the conditions that we listed. And one of them on the last condition there is that you can combine a dispensary with other uses. But then they would have to meet all the requirements of those other uses also. Now, you cannot consume cannabis at a restaurant. So it's not going to be an operation like that. You could not have a drinking establishment with cannabis. So, there's a lot of different things that are kind of not presented.
It's not going to be a mix.
Yes, but there's other ways you could use it. I mean, you might have cooking classes, and that might show how you could use the product without actually having the product in it. So,
Okay.
Michael Lorge, Corporation Counsel for the Village. Pete has really accurately reflected a significant amount of conversation that's gone into this whole consideration, the proposal that's in front of you and the proposal that'll be coming to the board in terms of licensing, taxing, et cetera. And so the nuance of this very issue is one of those things we've had extensive conversations with. And as Pete's indicated, this is a very broad conversation within the village, including the health department, including the police department and fire department, et cetera. I will tell you now that while there's nuance to it, out of the gate, there will be no consumption on any licensed facility in Skokie. That's how it'll come to the board. So to whatever degree that impacts the discussion here, while it's not really germane to what's in front of you directly, the expectation now is that we would come to the board with no consumption, whether it's edible or smoking.
Michael, question for you. When you said a licensed facility, are you talking about regular licensing that we would have? Or are you talking about any other type of licensing? For instance, like if I opened up a service station, that would that be a place where you could not have it?
It will only be at licensed facilities that apply, that are standalone buildings as set forth by Pete, and there would be a limited number of licenses. And we're trying to finalize that number, but it would be nowhere near the number of potential sites. And we would go slow, so it's more likely it would be a small number than a large number. We feel that we cannot legislate or control the issue of use. That's been taken away by the state. There is no way to impact, control, or limit use. Once that's a fact, then it seems to make sense for us to be part of the location for distribution. Because if it isn't in Skokie, then it'll be 3 blocks over one of our borders. So in a sense of being pragmatic, it seems to make sense to step in cautiously and thoughtfully, but step in.
Thank you. Peter? Anything else? Any other questions of Peter?
Would you just want to go over the staff recommended
Sure.
conditions? Just so it's on the record and that whoever might be listening could also see it, hear it. So again, the recommendation is first the definition, which again is a cannabis dispensary, which comes almost directly from the state legislation. Then we have, we still are containing a definition for medical cannabis cultivation center, which we have none of them in town. We have eliminated the recommendation or the existing definition of medical cannabis dispensing because they're combined in the new dispensing centers. And then under the general provisions, and many uses have general provisions that regulate them. They may be special uses or permitted uses which have operating regulations. So going through here, the building form, it must be located in a freestanding building. Licensure, the use must have all required state, Illinois, and Village of Skokie licenses. Location restrictions, the 1,500 feet between pre-existing dispensaries and 1,000 feet from the property line of public school grounds, child care centers, public park or library, or games arcade establishment, or recreation center or facility to which admission is not restricted to persons 21 or older. Lighting, the site must be lit. All site lighting inside the dispensary and outside must provide adequate light levels so that security cameras can be operated and the safety of customers and employees. Visibility, the parking facilities must be visible from a public street. Vehicle access, parking facilities must be accessed directly from a public street. So there was a question about against residential properties, we would not allow that access to be from an alley like many businesses have. So that again would further restrict the number of uses or locations where it could be. screening, a dispensary site must be separated from an adjacent lot with a building containing a residence by a 6-foot-high solid fence. And we do allow by code and between commercial and residential districts 6-foot-high fences. The hours of operation would be 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., as we stated. A minimum of 2 employees working at the dispensary at any time. And I believe that's also a state requirement. Location of sales, all product storage, display, and sales must be conducted inside an enclosed building. No drive-through facilities, they're prohibited. Sales only, cannabis products shall be sold at retail at the dispensary, but are prohibited from being cultivated, processed, or manufactured at that location. And finally, the combined uses, which we talked about, other uses that are permitted or special uses in the district in which the dispensary is located may be combined with the cannabis dispensary, provided that they meet all off-street parking requirements and all other code requirements for each use. So we're not putting away any kind of requirements of any other use to combine with the dispensary.
I thought, I'm not understanding, I thought you said it had to be standalone for this purpose only.
Standalone building, but let's say,
Liquor, let's say, why wouldn't a permitted liquor use, why wouldn't a bar sell also
Again,
cannabis?
well, you could sell in the retail section, but then the bar would have to be a separate use, and we would have to look at it and see how that would actually function. And I would say, no, we don't allow, first off, we don't allow bars separately. So the only thing that you could do is create a restaurant with liquor, but then you couldn't sell cannabis there anyhow, because you cannot consume or smoke it in a public place. And a restaurant is considered a public place. So that would prohibit it. It might be something different. I think a lot of these facilities now are becoming higher end, and they might want to have health classes. They might have classes on the use. They might have cooking classes, as I mentioned. There might be different things that we probably don't even know about, how they want to operate. But again, we would not just allow those uses without examining them and being sure that they're allowed in the district and they meet all requirements.
And then a different question, I didn't notice anything about window screening. I noticed that the medical dispensaries, as they have existed in Chicago, all have fully painted windows, offending my Skokie sensibility of our rule of no more than 25% of a window may be papered over or signed.
Right.
Do we then have the same signage and window papering requirements
Yes.
for these as that?
Yes, they must meet all the same sign code requirements. If you're on one street, you can only have one ground sign, you can only have one wall sign. If you're on a corner, you can have 2. We would apply the same thing.
You must have windows, they must be open to view from the street, and they can only be occupied by no more than 25% signage.
If you have windows. Actually, if you're not in the downtown, there's no 100% requirement that you have windows, but the building will have to go to the Appearance Commission. I can assure you that staff will want to see those windows. It does clearly state, the state code and here, that you must have visibility inside, and so we'll be expecting that. Appearance Commission, as you know, is a final hearing body, and we will definitely recommend that there be windows.
Okay, any questions of staff? None? Okay. At this time, I'll open up the floor to anyone in the audience who has a question or a comment. Feel free to come up. Anyone? None? Okay. Okay, then, any further discussion? I'm open for a motion for case 2019-22P, zoning chapter amendment, cannabis dispensing.
I'll make a motion
Ordinance.
that the report, staff report be accepted
As
presented.
as presented, thank you. Commissioner Jeff
I'll
Burns,
second.
second, Commissioner Lexpati, thank you. Call for the vote. Commissioner Mitchell,
No.
Commissioner Quain,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Villegas,
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
Commissioner Lexpati,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Motion passes. This still has to go before the Board of Trustees for final approval. And again, they meet on the first Monday and third Monday of every month. I thank you for attending the meeting tonight, and this meeting is adjourned.